Hello everyone, Spaced Oyster here, and welcome back to Let's Play Shadow of the Colossus. Last time we got a little gutsy and decided to tackle Colossi numbers 10, 11, and 12 all in one go. It was a pretty harrowing ordeal. This time we will be tackling the 13th and 14th Colossi, and yeah, just having a jolly good time. Not with cooperation though. Anyway, since last time we beat the 12th Colossus, we get a cutscene. And this time, it's actually pretty lengthy. Hopefully you recognize that mask. That was the same mask that showed up in the opening cutscene. And the guy wearing it also gave the opening narration. And it looks like they're on their way to try and foil our I was gonna try and call it something funny, but I couldn't think of anything. Colossus slide. But Thor's statue broke down there, and now we're gonna get a hint from Dorman about our next target. Ominous, but I'm pretty sure they wanted you to be able to not overlook the fact that you're going to need aggro for this one too. In fact, this is the last time you're ever going to need aggro. Well, in the battle. We're going to be using her to get around still. Anyway, once again, we'll be heading through that forest that was on the way to Colossus number 6, Santa. And yeah, I guess on the way there, oh, right, I actually read something interesting about Shadow of the Colossus. Adam Sandler had, I think he got a review copy, or he generally just likes the game, and he actually had it. He actually had scenes of himself playing it in one of his non-comedic roles in Rain Over Me, I think it was called. It was a movie about some friends who reconnect after they got separate or didn't see each other in a while after college, and they actually have scenes from Shadow of the Colossus with the actors actually defeating the Colossi in the order that you're supposed to, no less. And I think they're supposed to reflect the characters' own struggles throughout the movie. I honestly haven't seen it. A little tempted to try and pick it up, but at the same time, the fact that it was centered around, or takes place after 9/11 makes me think it's some sort of, well, the word I was going to use was clickbait, but that's not really applicable for a movie. Might be worth checking out anyway, and I didn't really take Adam Sandler for the type of person who'd like these sort of games, although, to be honest, I don't actually know him that well, just from the roles he plays. But since he was in that movie about video games coming to life, that should have been a dead giveaway that he plays them too. Well, we're almost at the next Colossus. This one is going to be another fan favorite, and is often used as a prime example of Wander being a flaming bag of poo. I usually got such creative metaphors, and I just can't think of them. Anyway, this is Colossus number 13, Phalanx. Phalanx? I'm actually going to call them the Steps of Faith. phalanx does not fit at all. A phalanx is that army position they used back in the old days before there were guns, where everyone would stand in a huddle with all their shields up and spears pointing out. First boss of Demon Souls was called Phalanx, and it perfectly fit that guy. Actually, I think it was the corrupted soul of a woman, so it perfectly fit her. But Steps of Faith was a duty I did not like doing at all on Final Fantasy XIV. Fortunately, though, this version of these Steps of Faith is much more enjoyable, and I loved watching that bridge burn. So, this fight actually technically has 3 phases, and you'll usually have to go through all 3 phases about 3 times. I did have to do that on hard mode. I assume it's the same for easy mode, and it definitely was for normal. And I also think Phalanx is a good example of the downsides of this remake. You'll see it once we get on there, if I can actually hit the air sac. At phase 1, you have to ride around and hit it. A very good thing I like about the new control scheme is that you can steer aggro and aim the bow with the separate joysticks. The left one will move aggro around, the right one will move your targeting reticle around. Come on, hit it! Why did they have to put it in such a tough spot to hit? There we go. Alright, we'll be getting onto it soon. Second phase is either the easiest or the hardest, depending on how much difficulty you have with it. I remember one time I couldn't get through this phase, or it'll save my life. Anyway, you have to charge up to his wings, dipping in the ground there, and leap off of aggro onto one of them. It's a lot more intense than it sounds, and honestly, it kind of looked a little slow. I don't know why everything's moving so sluggish. It tends to actually be a pretty quick fight, but one time when I was trying to stand up on aggro to see if I could jump higher while Wander was standing on the horse, I couldn't hold down the move button while I was doing that, and so aggro slowed down really, like, a lot. Phalanx actually slowed down a lot too. It seems like the Steps of Faith slowed down a lot too. It seems like they're programmed to respond to how fast aggro is moving and match your pace. Or maybe go a little slower. Not too many stabs there. Anyway, the reason why people bring this one up as an example of Wander being the bad guy is because that flip there is the only means with which the Steps of Faith is going to directly attack us. It doesn't have anything directly offensive, and it does do a lot of damage. When it re-enters the ground, you do take some damage from that. So it does damage you that way too, but that's ultimately it just going underground to recuperate. You can't really hold it against it for accidentally causing us harm for something it's naturally gonna do. Still hurts though. And aggro, our faithful horse, comes running. I don't know exactly how long it stays underground. I've never really timed it. But the Steps of Faith will burst out somewhere else, and the camera is kind of useless. I use that one thing that tries to auto-track onto the Colossus, and it keeps pointing me in that direction. Not sure how accurate it was. I guess we'll see in just a moment. Actually, I think it was spot on. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. And it's still gushing blood. Alright, there's one. There's two. And that makes three. And I guess we didn't get to see that example of what I was talking about. When I was playing through this section, the camera was shaking like crazy. The controller was rumbling like crazy. Everything was just shaking too much. I haven't really noticed it while going through it for this re-recording, or the recording of the audio. Maybe it's not that big a deal. Wait, no, never mind. There was a bit of shaky cam. Yeah, the camera was just shaking around way too much. And it does it on a light scale, so it makes this part tough to play. Like, if you got a PlayStation 2 or even 3 copy of this game, I'd probably recommend that a bit more just for this encounter, if nothing else. There it is. Yeah. Oof. Maybe I should put a motion sickness warning, because that is not good. And as far as I'm aware, the Steps of Faith here is the only Colossus that really suffers from that sort of problem. Oh! Clumsy, clumsy Wander. Yeah, you can see poor Aggro down there. I kind of feel bad for the pony. Alright, that was the third stab, I think, so... Oh, wait, no, one more to go. One more to go. Okay, now we're running. Ooh. I don't know what the camera did there that showed us off that weird thing right before it spun around, but it was kind of annoying. I think that screech it made means it's about to dive back under. Yeah, it'll always close those flaps down, so if you're at one of those and you're stabbing away, that's the signal that you're going to have to be prepared to dismount and get back on. Now, just like the last Colossus, Thor, the Steps of Faith here does take a long time. In fact, all of these last few do. But in the cases of everything past Thor, I'd say it's actually worthwhile, because the fights are actually fun and interesting. I wanted to see if the sword beam would point me right to the Colossus. If I remember right, it does. And I forgot which button makes the horse go forward. Just for a second there. Wander can actually fire that bow pretty quickly. Oh right, I forgot to mention a weird thing I finally noticed about Wander. When he's holding the bow, he keeps it in his right hand, similar to the sword, but when he's firing it, he moves it to his left hand and draws the arrow with his right. It makes me think that they were simply recycling his sword-holding animation and just swapped out the sword texture for the bow texture. Which is a little disappointing. I honestly thought Wander was ambidextrous instead of just right-handed. Not that being right-handed is a bad thing, I'm right-handed. But left-handed people get so little representation, especially now that Link had to get his prominent hand changed from left to right thanks to the Wii. Makes me wonder why they did that though. Like for Skyward Sword, I get it, since the sword was swinging exactly the way you swung it. But with Twilight Princess, it wasn't necessary. Because the sword swinging the Wii remote didn't make Link swing the sword the same way you did. It just made him swing it, whatever direction worked. I guess it was some sort of like psychic disconnect. I guess a lot of the testers for the game had a tough time getting their heads around. I swing with my right hand, he swings with his left hand. But then that just screws over everyone who's left-handed who bought the game. So they're just screwing over the minority for it to favor the majority, if that was the case. I doubt it. And if Twilight Princess is any indication, they do have the entire world flipped, so that way, I'd assume on the Wii version, if you wanted to play it with your left hand, with the Wiimote in your left hand, you could switch it around. I don't even know why they decided to do a mirrored world for Twilight Princess instead of just retexturing Link to hold it with his right hand. Well, or... yeah, and it was shaking a lot there when I was on the Colossus too, but when I got off it stopped. And I think I answered my own question. It was probably a lot cheaper and easier for them to simply simply flip everything in the game. Like they probably just had to change all the values, a little control, a little find all and replace all sort of thing. Maybe. I don't know. Still, at the time it seemed like such a drastic move to me, but it makes more sense now that I know a smidge more about stuff. Like programming stuff. I am still very ignorant. Do not ask me about anything programming related, because odds are I don't know, and you're just gonna get a confused, But a flip like that makes a lot more sense to me now than it did back then. So the Steps of Faith is down. We saw their statues shatter. And now we're going to go on to our next Colossus. Huh. You know, those hints are actually kind of useful. I mean, they don't do a very good job of hinting at exactly what you're going to do, but it does hint at what will happen over the fight. Spoiler alert, I guess. And a destroyed, abandoned city sounds fun. Still haven't figured out how to pet the horse. I didn't actually figure that out. As you can see, Colossus number 14 is going to be off in this direction. Well, I guess since we're getting close to the end of this Let's Play, I guess I could talk about potential ideas for the next one. As I'm pretty sure I already mentioned, I'd like to do Final Fantasy XII next. The International Zodiac Job Edition thing was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed playing through it. Although, that said, if I do that one, I'd be going through the game, I'd be going through Final Fantasy XII in a way that would just let me put Bosch into a weird class that doesn't actually fit him. It's pretty much what the whole game has turned into for me now. Last time I made him a black mage. It was hilarious. But other games I've been considering besides Final Fantasy XII, well, I kind of want to also give a randomized Pokemon run playthrough a shot. I saw the King Nappy do a Let's Play of a Nuzlocke version of that for Pokemon Emerald. He randomized everything. And it looked really interesting, although I wouldn't be doing that as a Nuzlocke. Like, as he pointed out, since the AI knows exactly what type your Pokemon is, and it has the type chart memorized too, it would be able to hit you with the best moves possible, while you would be forced to keep doing guesswork the whole time. So if I did do that, I wouldn't be doing a true Nuzlocke. I wouldn't want on permadeath. And I wouldn't want to limit myself anyway either. Like, if I'm going to change up all the Pokemon's types and abilities and movesets, I want to see what they can all do. Although that said, I did actually try that randomizer a bit before I even got any of this recording equipment. And I didn't randomize everything for a playthrough that I've got currently going for Pokemon Emerald. Got about 6 badges, and the only things I randomized were the TMs, which ones the Pokemon can learn based on their type, so they'd have a higher chance to learn moves of the same type. And then I also randomized their abilities and their stat distribution. So like a Pokemon who would normally be very fast could have its normally high speed stat swapped with its terribly low defense stat. Well, not swapped one for one, but you get the idea. It's been a lot of fun going through that so far. And since I didn't change up the types or anything like that, it's also not as confusing. In addition to the Pokemon randomizer, I was also thinking maybe Ori and the Blind Forest. It's a very artsy Metroidvania style platformer. It always seems to get me to tear up right at the start. It does start off very sad though. It's a game that looks very pretty, but I'm horrible at it. Like I mentioned before with platformers, I'm not good at platforming. I do have a Switch with Breath of the Wild. I didn't really want to do a Let's Play of that since I assumed that YouTube's going to be oversaturated with Breath of the Wild videos. Lots of good ones too. I guess on the topic of Breath of the Wild though, when it comes to weapon degradation systems, I did not like the way it worked in Breath of the Wild. It felt a little too tedious. Joseph Anderson did a much better job of explaining what went wrong with it, but I basically agreed with the stuff he pointed out. That it was pretty tense and exciting right early on when you had a bunch of fragile weapons, and then it just got tedious as you got through the game when everything had enough durability to last for a couple fights, and that you would also end up, instead of using variety, you would instead do the exact opposite, just picking up one weapon and then using that weapon until it broke, because you wouldn't remember what their durability is at. Honestly, weapon durability systems, I really liked Fire Emblem back when it had that. Nowadays, with the system they have in Fates, I didn't really care for the way Fates handled weapons as much. It really made me miss the durability because, well, considering how slow-paced the battles were, that 20 durability Silver Sword seemed to last a lot longer than just 20 uses. And not to mention it added to the strategy, like do you use your more fragile but powerful weapons, or do you keep your character using the wimpy ones that'll last longer? And it would depend on the situation. Breath of the Wild really didn't emulate that sort of strategic thinking well, since pretty much all your weapons had the same effect. I did try to keep the various elemental type weapons, like the lightning, fire, and ice swords, but it ended up being mostly superfluous. I ended up breaking through them anyway. Alright, so here we have Colossus number 14. His semi-official name is Zenobia, but I'm going to call him Load of Bull, hopefully for semi-obvious reasons. Just like the 11th Colossus, Bullshit, he is going to be extremely dangerous and hostile. Unlike Bullshit, however, we're instead going to be exposing Load of Bull's weak spot by going through this platforming section through the destroyed city. Well, if it wasn't destroyed, it's going to be. So when you get to one of these towers, he's going to ram right into it. He'll do that exactly once before he recoils, and he'll just watch you. You need to aggravate him by hitting him with your bow. It doesn't do any damage to him, but he still hates it anyway. But might be something with his ears. One other interesting fact is if you have a good grip on the top of the pillar as it's collapsing, the Wander will always let go as it's falling and land right in the middle every time. Like, I held down the grip gauge and everything, he still let go right there. He should land on it pretty consistently, but if he ever doesn't, it's possible to climb these pillars when they're on the ground, because they'll be low enough that you can grab onto them. I think the very first thing we grabbed onto was one of these collapsed pillars. And it takes a little bit to get to where we need to go. Honestly, they probably had a few too many of these pillars, but it ultimately works out. Having this encounter be more of a platforming puzzle definitely makes it stand out from all the other colossi who admittedly were the platforming puzzle for their encounters. If you are looking for those enlightenments, I do believe there's actually one here. I think if you come back after slaying Load of Bull, you might be able to make it up to where he was sitting before he charged down, and I think an enlightenment's up there. They also added one more reference into the game. It's in a cave that I don't know the location of. But it's one of those barrels that you feed the giant chimera dog thingy in The Last Guardian. And there's an enlightenment in that cave along with that reference. It was added in, obviously. Team Ico isn't like Pixar. They don't foreshadow their next. They didn't foreshadow their next game in the previous one. It'd been pretty badass if they did, but sadly not. Or, well, I guess not sadly, just they didn't. Yeah, I tried to crawl forward here to try and get Wander to just flip over onto the other side. It did not work out. I'm not entirely sure what would happen if you just stay on the top there while it's collapsing, but my initial guess is going to be not good. He only really rammed into each of these towers once. I'm not sure why he gives up so easily. Maybe he's just, well, I was gonna say a quitter, but maybe it just hurts a lot. Ooh. Ugh, excuse me. I suppose for now, I'll just get started on recording Final Fantasy XII. I think I got my audio issues fixed, and I should be able to do Final Fantasy XII with live audio, well, unless I run into some problems. Well, oh, right, I forgot I glitched out there. Alright, so now that we're near the entrance again, we're going to have to make a mad dash to a ladder. My evil plan here is to enrage Load of Bull into attacking this pillar to stun him for a few seconds so I can safely make it over to here. And then, once we're up here, you want to aggravate him one more time by hitting him with an arrow, wherever he ran off to. Ooh. Yep, and we cause a ceiling to collapse on him. We might be the bad guy. Yeah, just maybe. But he has it in pretty much the exact same spot as Bullshit. Although the biggest difference between him and between Load of Bull and Bullshit, the 11th Colossus, is that Load of Bull here is going to wiggle around a lot more. Like, once he gets moving, he can usually keep Wander from being able to get his grip to stab away. Now, I say usually, but he actually glitches out for me on here, and I'm able to get him in one. Like, he keeps trying to run through here, but he can't get past it. He's a little buggy at times. I guess I could have given them more cat-named themes, since this one, since Load of Bull here actually reminded me a bit more of a, like, panther or other big cat. But I went with the bull theming because both of them really have bull-like tendencies for video game bosses. You know, they get mad, charge at you. Alright, so with Load of Bull down, I'm gonna call that an episode. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked what you saw, and I will see you all next time. Space Oyster, signing out.